You feel your legs go weak, your head starts to throb, and before you know it, the lights go out. The elevator you're in becomes your whole world, until, in the blink of an eye, everything changes. What would you do if you woke up somewhere completely unexpected? Somewhere luxurious, out of your reach, somewhere that doesn't make any sense. Today, I'm going to take you on a wild ride, a roller coaster of emotions and mystery that will have you questioning everything you think you know about reality. Picture this: a normal day turns into something out of a thriller. You know the feeling, right? Something happens that throws you off balance. Maybe it's an accident, maybe it's something far worse, but whatever it is, it leaves you speechless. And that's exactly what happens to Emily, a seemingly ordinary woman like you or me. She steps into an elevator on what she thinks is just another regular day, only to lose consciousness in a heartbeat. But when she wakes up, she's no longer in the world she knew. She's in a penthouse, a lavish penthouse high above the city, far removed from everything she recognizes. Sounds like a dream, right? Too good to be true? Too bizarre to explain? That's exactly what Emily thought too. But this is not a dream. And the truth behind why she's there is far more chilling than anything you could ever imagine. I know what you're thinking. How could she have gotten there? Was she kidnapped? Was this all part of some elaborate prank? Did someone set her up? The answers aren't as simple as they seem. And trust me, you want to stick around for the entire story, because I'm going to drop the answers you came here for, but only if you stay with me until the very end. By the time we reach the truth, you won't just be hooked, you'll be questioning everything you thought you knew about the world around you. But before we dive in, let me ask you a question. Have you ever had that gut feeling that something wasn't quite right, but you couldn't put your finger on it? Maybe it was a strange encounter with a stranger, or an unsettling series of events that didn't add up. Something deep down told you that you were being watched, followed, or set up. That's what happens to Emily. When she wakes up in this impossibly extravagant penthouse, she's confused. She's disoriented. But more than anything, she's scared. Because nothing is as it seems. As the story unfolds, you'll find out that Emily's not just dealing with the luxury of a high-rise apartment, there are secrets lurking within the walls. This penthouse holds more than just fine furniture and breathtaking views. It holds a mystery, a puzzle. And Emily's trapped right in the middle of it. I'm telling you, this story is not going where you think it's going. What she uncovers inside the penthouse is going to make your head spin. But that's the thing, once you start piecing together the clues, you'll start to see that everything you thought you knew about Emily's situation is completely wrong. So, let me set the stage. Emily is in this elevator. A normal woman, with a normal life, riding up or down, we don't know yet. What we do know is that something happens during that ride. Maybe it was the heat, maybe it was the pressure, or maybe, just maybe, there was something more sinister at play. And when she wakes up, she's in a penthouse far beyond her wildest dreams. She doesn't know how she got there. And she doesn't know why. But the more she tries to figure it out, the more complicated it becomes. I know you're dying to know how she ended up there. Who brought her there? Was it some sort of accident, or something more deliberate? The penthouse itself, as lavish and modern as it is, feels like a gilded cage. Every corner she turns, every room she explores, only adds more to the mystery. The high-tech gadgets in the living room, the opulent furniture, the priceless art on the walls, none of it makes sense. Emily doesn't belong there. Or does she? I can hear you asking, why doesn't she just leave? Well, it's not that easy. The doors are locked. The windows are sealed shut. The elevator she rode in isn't coming back. She's trapped. And that's when the real puzzle begins. There's something inside that penthouse, something hidden from her, from everyone, that will unlock the truth about why she's there. But before she can get to that, she has to face the shadows in the penthouse, the things she doesn't want to know. What happened to Emily on that elevator ride? Why is she in this luxurious prison? And who or what is pulling the strings in this bizarre game? Now, you might think this is all just a random, freak accident, but I promise you, there's so much more beneath the surface. This isn't just about a woman who passed out in an elevator. This is about a system, a force, that no one can control. Emily's about to discover a truth about herself, about the world, and about the people around her that will change everything. You'll be glued to your seat as she unravels this mystery. But, remember, every answer comes with a darker question. And we haven't even scratched the surface yet. The penthouse may look perfect, but I promise you, it's far from it. And the story behind how Emily got there, it's not what anyone expects. I want you to stay with me, because in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you the first twist that will change everything. It's a moment you won't see coming. You're going to want to keep watching, to get the answer to the question you came here for. Stay tuned. Because you're about to find out exactly why Emily fainted in the elevator, and just how deep this mystery really goes. When Emily woke up in that penthouse, the first thing she noticed was the silence. It wasn't the peaceful kind, either. It was unnerving, almost suffocating. The kind of silence that creeps into your bones and makes your skin crawl. She tried to sit up, her head still spinning, and found herself lying on an incredibly soft, white leather sofa. The room she was in looked like it belonged in a high-end magazine, with its sleek modern decor, polished floors, and panoramic views of the city skyline. But there was no sense of comfort in it. There was no warmth, no familiarity. Just cold, calculated luxury that felt more like a trap than a home. Emily rubbed her eyes, trying to clear her foggy mind, but nothing about her situation made sense. How had she gotten here? Her last clear memory was stepping into the elevator on the ground floor of her apartment building. It was just another normal Tuesday, or so she thought. She'd spent the day running errands, dealing with work emails, and catching up with an old friend. It wasn't an eventful day by any means, but then again, nothing about her life had been out of the ordinary lately. She had been feeling a little off, maybe a bit more tired than usual, but nothing alarming. She hadn't even been sick, just slightly run down. She assumed it was just stress. Maybe she was working too hard or not sleeping enough. The usual causes for exhaustion. And yet, here she was, in a place that felt completely alien. It wasn't until she tried to leave the penthouse that the confusion and panic really started to settle in. The door to the hallway was locked. No matter how hard she pushed, twisted, or tried to turn the handle, it wouldn't budge. The sleek, modern keycard on the table next to the door didn't seem to work either. Her stomach churned as she paced back and forth, her mind racing. This wasn't a simple misunderstanding. Someone had brought her here, someone who clearly didn't care about leaving any trace behind. Emily's heart pounded in her chest. Who could have done this? And why? The first thought that crossed her mind was her ex-boyfriend, Aaron. He had always been a bit unpredictable, charming, but a little too possessive at times. They had broken up months ago, but he hadn't exactly taken it well. There had been times when Emily had caught him watching her from a distance, sending her cryptic messages, and making strange, almost threatening comments. At first, she thought it was just his way of dealing with the breakup. But after a while, it started to feel like he was crossing a line. She had blocked him on social media, changed her phone number, and even moved to a new apartment in an attempt to get some space. But she couldn't shake the feeling that he was still watching her. Still following her. Could Aaron have orchestrated all of this? The idea sent a chill down her spine. But there was something that didn't quite add up. Aaron wasn't rich, not by any stretch of the imagination. He worked at a small tech startup and lived in a modest apartment. This penthouse? It was an entirely different world. No one in her life, not even Aaron, could afford a place like this. She needed to stop jumping to conclusions. The situation was much bigger than just one person. And then there was the stranger she had encountered earlier that day. Emily had stopped by the local coffee shop to grab her usual latte when she bumped into a man who had seemed, well, a little too eager to talk to her. He was tall, with piercing green eyes and a voice that made her feel uneasy. At first, he seemed like just another friendly person, the kind you meet in passing, smile at, and move on with your day. But something about him lingered. He had asked too many questions about her personal life, about where she lived, about what she did for work. She had politely answered at first, but as the conversation stretched on, she had felt the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. He had smiled too much, like he knew something she didn't. It had felt like an interrogation disguised as small talk. Emily had brushed it off as nothing more than a strange encounter. But now, with everything that had happened, she couldn't help but wonder if that man had something to do with her being here. Had he been following her? Was he involved in whatever plan was unfolding behind the scenes? The thought gnawed at her, but she pushed it aside for the moment. It wasn't like she had any concrete evidence. It was all speculation, and Emily couldn't afford to make assumptions. Not when her life was on the line. With each passing moment in the penthouse, Emily grew more and more convinced that this wasn't a random act. Someone had carefully orchestrated her entire situation. There were too many unanswered questions, too many inconsistencies. She wasn't just a victim in a bizarre story. She was part of something far bigger, something that she wasn't prepared for. But who could be behind it? Who had the means, the motive, and the resources to pull something like this off? Her thoughts were interrupted by a sudden sound, a soft knock on the door. Emily froze. Her pulse quickened. She wasn't expecting anyone. Not unless they were part of whatever twisted plan had landed her in this penthouse. She took a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves, and walked cautiously toward the door. She peered through the peephole, but there was no one there. Nothing but the faint shadow of a figure moving just out of sight. Emily's heart skipped a beat. She had to get out. Whoever was on the other side wasn't just a curious stranger. They were part of the game, and she had no idea what the next move would be. There was another knock, this time louder. Then a voice. "Emily, are you in there? We need to talk." The voice was familiar, but it sent a wave of unease through her. Was it Aaron? Had he somehow tracked her down? Or was this someone else, someone with answers? She couldn't tell. But she knew one thing, whoever it was had just raised the stakes. Emily stood frozen in place, caught between fear and curiosity. The mystery was deepening. The more she uncovered, the more tangled the web became. And the only way out was to keep moving forward. But the question remained, what was waiting for her on the other side of that door? Emily stood there, frozen in front of the door, her heart racing. The voice on the other side sent a chill down her spine. She had only heard that tone once before, cold, detached, almost like it was rehearsed. It had been the voice of her former boss, Gregory Hartman. He had been an influential figure in her life, a man who had both mentored and manipulated her in ways she hadn't fully realized at the time. Their relationship had ended on rocky terms, and in the months since, Emily had done everything she could to distance herself from him. But now, hearing his voice, she felt the heavy weight of everything they'd been through suddenly come crashing back. Had Gregory played a role in this? Was this somehow his doing? Was he the one behind the strange messages, the unsettling encounters, the elevator that had taken her who knows where? She took a step back, breathing shallowly as she tried to make sense of it all. Her mind was spinning with possibilities, each one more impossible than the last. What game was being played here, and who was pulling the strings? But before she could piece anything together, the door to the penthouse slid open on its own, the soft hum of the automated system almost mocking her. The room beyond was empty. No one was there. No one had knocked. No one had even spoken. It was as if the moment had never happened. Emily stood in the doorway, her pulse racing as she scanned the room, searching for anything, any clue, any sign that would explain what was going on. But everything remained eerily still. It was almost as if the entire world had decided to hold its breath. And then, just as she was about to close the door and retreat further into the penthouse, her phone buzzed on the sleek glass table by the window. She picked it up quickly, already knowing what it would be, another message. Her hands trembled as she unlocked her phone, half expecting it to be from Gregory, or maybe Aaron, or one of the strangers from earlier. But when she opened the message, her blood ran cold. "I know what you're looking for. If you want answers, look in the cabinet. But be careful, some truths are better left hidden." The message was from an unknown number, and the words seemed almost too deliberate, too cryptic to ignore. Who was sending her these? What was this supposed to mean? Was this a warning or a challenge? And why, just why, did it feel like she had been led to this very moment, as if everything in her life had been building toward this one, terrifying revelation? Her gaze darted around the penthouse, and for the first time, Emily felt a real sense of dread. Not only was she trapped in a luxurious prison, but someone else was controlling the narrative. Someone was pulling her strings, manipulating the situation, making sure she didn't have a single chance to escape the cycle they had set in motion. But then, as her mind swirled with the possibilities, she remembered something else, someone else. Her best friend, Lily. Lily had been the one person in Emily's life who she trusted completely, who knew everything about her, all her fears, and the things she couldn't tell anyone else. But it was just a few days ago when Emily had shared something important with Lily. She'd told her everything, the strange occurrences, the unsettling feeling she'd had for weeks, the way her life was starting to unravel in ways she couldn't explain. But what Emily hadn't expected was that Lily had seemed unusually distant after that conversation. She didn't know why, but something about Lily's reaction that day had felt off. It was as though she had heard the words, but didn't really hear them. Almost like she already knew. Emily had shaken it off at the time, assuming that Lily was just dealing with her own stuff. But now, it felt as though there was more to the story. What if Lily wasn't as innocent in this whole situation as Emily had believed? What if she had been involved somehow? The thought made her stomach churn. Emily had never questioned Lily's loyalty before. They had grown up together, shared everything, their hopes, their fears, their secrets. But in the last few days, Lily had become more and more distant. She hadn't returned Emily's calls. And now, just when Emily needed someone the most, she was nowhere to be found. With a sense of urgency, Emily picked up her phone again, tapping out a quick message to Lily. "Where are you? I need to talk to you. Please." She stared at the screen for what felt like an eternity, waiting for a reply. But there was nothing. No seen notification. No reply. Just silence. But then, something strange happened. As Emily sat there in the penthouse, the same unease creeping back in, her phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a message, it was a missed call. From Lily. Emily's heart leaped in her chest, and she quickly dialed her back. The phone rang once, twice, and then, the line clicked. "Emily, we need to talk," Lily's voice came through, low and cautious, as if she were trying to hide something. "You're not safe." "Lily," Emily whispered, her voice barely above a breath. "What's going on? What's happening? I don't understand." "I can't explain right now," Lily cut her off. "But you need to be careful. There's more to this than you realize. You're not the only one being watched." The line went dead. Emily stared at her phone, her mind racing. She had barely processed what Lily had said when she heard another sound from across the room, a soft thud, like something had fallen. She turned, panic creeping in, and her eyes scanned the empty penthouse. But there, on the floor by the far wall, was a small, sleek black envelope. It wasn't there before. It hadn't been there when she first entered the room. With trembling hands, Emily approached it cautiously, every step feeling heavier than the last. She bent down, picked up the envelope, and opened it slowly. Inside, there was just one thing, a single key. No note, no explanation. Just a key. Her mind raced. What did this key open? Where was she supposed to go now? It wasn't just a key to the penthouse, it was something else, something more. And whatever it unlocked, Emily knew one thing for certain: she was running out of time. The walls around her suddenly felt like they were closing in, and every second that passed only deepened the mystery. Who was watching her? Was Lily part of this, or had she been targeted too? And what did this key lead to? As Emily gripped the key, she realized that the answers were just out of reach. The puzzle was far from complete, and every piece she uncovered only seemed to bring more questions. One thing was certain, though: whatever was going on, it was far more dangerous and far-reaching than she had ever imagined. And the worst part? She had no idea who, if anyone, could be trusted. Emily's fingers gripped the key so tightly that her knuckles turned white. She stood in the center of the penthouse, surrounded by pristine glass walls and cold, polished floors, yet all she could feel was a suffocating sense of dread. The phone call from Lily, the cryptic message, the strange envelope with the key, it was all piling up on top of her, each piece adding to a mounting weight of terror. The stillness of the penthouse was now oppressive, like the calm before a storm, and every creak of the building made her jump. She had to do something, anything, to make sense of all of this. But the more she thought about it, the more it felt like she was spiraling deeper into a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. She paced around the penthouse, the sudden realization hitting her with full force. She wasn't just stuck here, she was being watched. Every step she took, every glance she threw toward the windows, every soft echo of the elevator doors, felt like eyes were trained on her from somewhere, from everywhere. The feeling had started out small, like a flicker at the edge of her mind, but now it was undeniable. She wasn't alone here. Someone was observing her, waiting for her to make the wrong move. Or maybe she was the one being guided, led along a path where every door she opened, every question she asked, only took her further into the web that was closing in around her. She thought about Lily again, her best friend, the one person she had trusted above all others. The way Lily's voice had trembled on the phone earlier, as though she was terrified of saying too much. The cryptic warning, "You're not the only one being watched." What had Lily meant? Had she been dragged into this mess as well? Had she been a part of it from the start? Emily couldn't shake the fear that Lily was somehow more involved than she had let on. She had never been the type to hide things from Emily, but now, Emily was starting to question everything. It was then, in the midst of her rising panic, that Emily heard a noise, soft, but distinct. A faint thud. She froze. It came from behind her, from somewhere deep within the penthouse. She had checked every room, every corner, and had found nothing out of the ordinary. And yet, there it was again. A quick sound. Almost like someone was moving in the shadows, trying to stay hidden. She didn't dare to look back, too afraid to see what might be lurking behind her. Her body tensed as a familiar, sickening feeling crawled up her spine. Emily wasn't alone. Her breath hitched as she quickly reached for her phone, her hands shaking uncontrollably as she scrolled through her contacts. She needed to call Lily again. Or Aaron, or anyone. Someone who could tell her this wasn't real, that she wasn't being hunted like an animal. But just as she was about to dial, her phone buzzed again. Another message, this time from a different unknown number. "Don't make the mistake of looking back. They're already there." The message sent a jolt through her entire body. The feeling of being watched grew stronger, like a suffocating pressure on her chest. Her legs felt weak, and her head spun, the room seeming to close in on her. She couldn't breathe. They? Who was they? Were there more people involved? Were they waiting for her to make a move so they could pounce? Was it too late to run? Suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the penthouse. It was so jarring, so violent, that Emily couldn't move. For a long moment, she stood paralyzed, staring at the door that led into the hallway, waiting for something or someone to come through. But nothing happened. The silence was deafening once more. Yet, the oppressive tension in the air made it feel like something was lurking just beyond her sight. Her mind raced as she desperately tried to piece together the last few days, the people she had encountered, the strange messages, the cryptic threats. But the more she thought about it, the more questions surfaced. How had she ended up here? Why was she being targeted? Her phone buzzed again. This time, it wasn't a message, but a photo. Emily opened it with a trembling finger. It was a picture of her apartment. The one she had left behind, the one where she'd spent the last few months in relative peace. But there was something wrong about it. The angle from which it was taken was too perfect, the lighting too precise. It looked as if someone had been watching her place from across the street, capturing every detail, every corner of the room. She could even see the faint outline of the coffee mug she had left on the counter this morning. It was all too calculated, too intimate. The caption beneath the photo was simple, chilling, "We know where you are." The walls of the penthouse suddenly felt suffocating. The realization hit her like a punch to the gut. Whoever was behind this knew more than just her location. They knew her. Her every move, her habits, the way she lived her life. She was being stalked, hunted even, by someone who had been in her world long before she ever stepped into this twisted game. But then, the unthinkable happened. The door to the penthouse, the door she had checked and double-checked earlier, creaked open. Slowly, almost deliberately. Emily's blood ran cold. There was no way anyone could have gotten past her without her hearing them. She turned, panic rising in her chest as she scanned the room. No one was there. No one had entered. But the door was open. Just a crack. And she knew then, with every fiber of her being, that someone had been inside all along. Someone had been watching her, had been waiting for this exact moment. In that instant, the key she had found earlier felt like a cruel joke. It wasn't a solution. It wasn't an escape. It was just another part of the trap. Her phone buzzed again, this time vibrating on the glass table with such force that it nearly tipped over. Emily snatched it up, desperate for anything, any clue that could explain what was happening, but when she saw the message, her heart stopped. "You're not getting out. Not alive." Her blood ran ice cold. There was no escaping this. She was trapped, not just in this penthouse, but in a much darker game. And whoever was pulling the strings had just made one thing perfectly clear: she was never meant to escape. Her breath came in sharp gasps as she backed away from the door, the overwhelming sense of danger closing in on her with every passing second. The walls were closing in. Her mind raced, a frantic search for any way out, any way to fight back, but it was too late. Whatever had brought her here, whatever this dark force was, it was more powerful than she could have ever imagined. And the worst part? She was completely alone, with no one to help her. No one to trust. The only thing she knew for sure was that she was in far more danger than she ever realized. And the worst was still to come. Emily's heart raced as she stood there, her back pressed against the wall, every sense heightened as she listened for any movement. The open door, the messages, the unsettling feeling of being watched, it was all starting to feel like one giant nightmare that had no end. The chilling words that had come through her phone, the strange key, the cryptic warning from Lily, everything was spiraling out of control. It felt like her reality was unraveling in slow motion, the walls closing in with each breath she took. The more she tried to make sense of the chaos, the more impossible it became. She was stuck, a pawn in a game she couldn't understand, and every clue just pushed her deeper into confusion. Her phone buzzed again, this time with a new message. She hesitated for a moment, her mind still racing, but the sense of impending doom was too strong to ignore. She unlocked the screen, her fingers trembling. The message was from a number she didn't recognize, but the words stopped her dead in her tracks. "You don't know the truth yet. You never did." Emily felt the room spin. What was this supposed to mean? Was this someone else trying to manipulate her, or was it finally a clue that could explain everything? She tried to steady her breathing, her mind scrambling to catch up. But before she could process the message, the door opened a little further with a soft, metallic click, as if someone had nudged it with purpose, just enough to let her know they were there. Her pulse quickened. She wasn't alone. She never had been. Torn between running and confronting whatever waited behind that door, Emily decided to move toward it. Slowly, cautiously, with every nerve in her body screaming for her to turn and escape. But as she reached out to push the door open, something unexpected happened. A familiar face emerged from the shadows. It was Lily. Emily froze, her heart hammering in her chest. Her best friend stood in the doorway, but there was something different about her. The confident, reassuring presence that had always grounded Emily now seemed off. Lily's eyes were dark, almost empty, like she wasn't really there at all. Her face was pale, her expression unreadable. And her posture, that familiar, casual stance Emily had grown used to, was rigid, almost too still, as if she were waiting for something. Or someone. "Lily, what are you doing here?" Emily's voice was barely above a whisper, too overwhelmed by the sudden rush of emotions to form a coherent sentence. Lily didn't answer right away. She just stood there, silent for what felt like an eternity, before her lips finally parted. But the words that came out of her mouth were nothing like what Emily expected. "You never should have trusted me," Lily said, her voice strangely flat, devoid of any emotion. The words hit Emily like a punch to the stomach. Her mind raced, trying to process them, trying to figure out what was happening. Lily, the one person she had always trusted, the one person she had confided in, who knew all her secrets, had been hiding something all along. Something dark, something that made her question everything they had shared. "Lily, what's going on?" Emily's voice trembled, her fear escalating by the second. She took a step forward, desperate for some kind of explanation, but Lily raised her hand, stopping her in her tracks. "You don't get it, Emily," Lily continued, her voice devoid of warmth. This was never about you. It was never about any of us. You're just a piece in something much bigger. The words didn't make sense. Emily's mind was struggling to catch up, to process the magnitude of what Lily was saying. Was she part of this all along? Had Lily been orchestrating everything from the start? Was this whole ordeal some kind of game, with Emily as the unwitting player? You've been following the wrong path, Emily, Lily said, her eyes darkening. You were never meant to find the truth. You were always meant to stay in the dark. A chilling realization swept over Emily. Every clue, every message, every twist in the story had been designed to lead her to this moment. The penthouse, the strange encounters, the threats, the key, they were all part of a carefully laid plan. A plan she had never even suspected. And Lily had been part of it the whole time. She wasn't a victim. She was a participant. But, why? Emily stammered, her voice shaking with disbelief. Why would you do this? Why betray me like this? Lily's expression remained unreadable as she stepped further into the room. The door behind her closed softly, and Emily couldn't shake the feeling that the walls were closing in once again. Because you never understood the bigger picture, Lily said, her eyes narrowing. It's never been about us. It's about something much larger, something more dangerous. And you're right about one thing. You're in danger, Emily. But not from whoever you think is watching you. Emily's head was spinning. Danger? From who? From what? It felt like the world she knew was collapsing, piece by piece, and she couldn't make sense of any of it. The threads she had been following were tangled in ways she couldn't even begin to unravel. Then what is this about? What am I supposed to do? Emily whispered, her voice cracking with emotion. I don't understand. Lily stepped closer, her eyes cold now, almost like a stranger's. She reached into her pocket and pulled out something small and shiny. A sleek black card. You don't need to understand, Lily said, her voice quiet but intense. You just need to do what you're told. There's no escaping it now. You're already in too deep. Before Emily could react, Lily turned and walked toward the exit, her words echoing in the silence. Remember this, you wanted to know the truth. Now you'll live with it. The door closed behind her, leaving Emily alone in the penthouse once again. The sudden weight of everything that had happened, the messages, the fear, the uncertainty, crashed down on her all at once. Lily had been playing her all along, and she had no idea what was true anymore. What had started as a search for answers had turned into a nightmare of betrayal and manipulation. But the worst part? Lily had just opened the door to a new, even darker chapter, one that Emily wasn't sure she was strong enough to face. What was the truth? And who could she trust now? As the minutes stretched into eternity, Emily realized one terrifying fact: she had been nothing more than a pawn in someone else's game. And the rules were changing faster than she could keep up. Emily stood alone in the silence of the penthouse, her mind reeling. The room felt like it was closing in on her, every corner sharp and unforgiving. Her hands shook as she replayed Lily's words over and over again in her mind. You're already in too deep. There was no denying it now. Everything she thought she knew about her life, about her friendships, had been a lie. But as the truth began to sink in, so did the fear. This wasn't just about finding answers anymore, it was about survival. And she had no idea who to trust or even how to escape this nightmare. The hours dragged on, each one heavier than the last. The messages kept coming, more cryptic, more chilling, but none of them gave her any real answers. She tried calling Aaron again, hoping that he might have some insight, but his phone went straight to voicemail. Had he abandoned her, too? Was everyone she had ever known a part of this twisted plot, pulling her deeper into a game she wasn't prepared for? Just when Emily thought she couldn't take another moment of uncertainty, a knock echoed through the door, breaking the oppressive silence. She froze, heart pounding in her chest. No one was supposed to be here. Not after Lily's visit. Not after the messages. Who could it be? The fear hit her again like a wave, her breath catching in her throat as she approached the door, every instinct telling her to run, to hide, but some sick curiosity, kept her rooted in place. Slowly, she opened it, and standing there in the hallway, looking both worried and exhausted, was none other than Aaron. "Emily," he said, his voice filled with a mixture of relief and something she couldn't quite place. "You okay?" But the words that came out of her mouth were nothing like what Emily expected. "You never should have trusted me," Lily said, her voice strangely flat, devoid of any emotion. The words hit Emily like a punch to the stomach. Her mind raced, trying to process them, trying to figure out what was happening. Lily, the one person she had always trusted, the one person she had confided in, who knew all her secrets, had been hiding something all along. Something dark, something that made her question everything they had shared. "Lily, what's going on?" Emily's voice trembled, her fear escalating by the second. She took a step forward, desperate for some kind of explanation, but Lily raised her hand, stopping her in her tracks. "You don't get it, Emily," Lily continued, her voice devoid of warmth. "This was never about you. It was never about any of us. You're just a piece in something much bigger." The words didn't make sense. Emily's mind was struggling to catch up, to process the magnitude of what Lily was saying. Was she part of this all along? Had Lily been orchestrating everything from the start? Was this whole ordeal some kind of game, with Emily as the unwitting player? "You've been following the wrong path, Emily," Lily said, her eyes darkening. "You were never meant to find the truth. You were always meant to stay in the dark." A chilling realization swept over Emily. Every clue, every message, every twist in the story had been designed to lead her to this moment. The penthouse, the strange encounters, the threats, the key, they were all part of a carefully laid plan. A plan she had never even suspected. And Lily had been part of it the whole time. She wasn't a victim. She was a participant. "But, why?" Emily stammered, her voice shaking with disbelief. "Why would you do this? Why betray me like this?" Lily's expression remained unreadable as she stepped further into the room. The door behind her closed softly, and Emily couldn't shake the feeling that the walls were closing in once again. "Because you never understood the bigger picture," Lily said, her eyes narrowing. "It's never been about us. It's about something much larger, something more dangerous. And you're right about one thing. You're in danger, Emily. But not from whoever you think is watching you." Emily's head was spinning. Danger? From who? From what? It felt like the world she knew was collapsing, piece by piece, and she couldn't make sense of any of it. The threads she had been following were tangled in ways she couldn't even begin to unravel. "Then what is this about? What am I supposed to do?" Emily whispered, her voice cracking with emotion. "I don't understand." Lily stepped closer, her eyes cold now, almost like a stranger's. She reached into her pocket and pulled out something small and shiny. A sleek black card. "You don't need to understand," Lily said, her voice quiet but intense. "You just need to do what you're told. There's no escaping it now. You're already in too deep." Before Emily could react, Lily turned and walked toward the exit, her words echoing in the silence. "Remember this, you wanted to know the truth. Now you'll live with it." The door closed behind her, leaving Emily alone in the penthouse once again. The sudden weight of everything that had happened, the messages, the fear, the uncertainty, crashed down on her all at once. Lily had been playing her all along, and she had no idea what was true anymore. What had started as a search for answers had turned into a nightmare of betrayal and manipulation. But the worst part? Lily had just opened the door to a new, even darker chapter, one that Emily wasn't sure she was strong enough to face. What was the truth? And who could she trust now? As the minutes stretched into eternity, Emily realized one terrifying fact: she had been nothing more than a pawn in someone else's game. And the rules were changing faster than she could keep up. Emily stood alone in the silence of the penthouse, her mind reeling. The room felt like it was closing in on her, every corner sharp and unforgiving. Her hands shook as she replayed Lily's words over and over again in her mind. "You're already in too deep." There was no denying it now. Everything she thought she knew about her life, about her friendships, had been a lie. But as the truth began to sink in, so did the fear. This wasn't just about finding answers anymore, it was about survival. And she had no idea who to trust or even how to escape this nightmare. The hours dragged on, each one heavier than the last. The messages kept coming, more cryptic, more chilling, but none of them gave her any real answers. She tried calling Aaron again, hoping that he might have some insight, but his phone went straight to voicemail. Had he abandoned her, too? Was everyone she had ever known a part of this twisted plot, pulling her deeper into a game she wasn't prepared for? Just when Emily thought she couldn't take another moment of uncertainty, a knock echoed through the door, breaking the oppressive silence. She froze, heart pounding in her chest. No one was supposed to be here. Not after Lily's visit. Not after the messages. Who could it be? The fear hit her again like a wave, her breath catching in her throat as she approached the door, every instinct telling her to run, to hide, but some sick curiosity, kept her rooted in place. Slowly, she opened it, and standing there in the hallway, looking both worried and exhausted, was none other than Aaron. "Emily," he said, his voice filled with a mixture of relief and something she couldn't quite place. "You okay?" Her first instinct was to shut the door in his face. But she didn't. She let him in, even though every part of her screamed that something was wrong. Because the truth was, she didn't know what else to do. She needed someone. Anyone. Even if it meant putting herself at risk. As Aaron stepped into the penthouse, his eyes immediately went to her, scanning her face as if trying to gauge how much she knew. His eyes flickered with hesitation before settling on her, and in that moment, Emily realized something. This wasn't just a chance meeting. He had been sent here. He had been watching her, too, just like everyone else. Maybe he was even part of it all along. "Aaron, what's going on? Why did you disappear?" The words came out before she could stop them, sharp and desperate. Aaron's expression hardened, his jaw tightening as he took a step toward her. "I didn't disappear, Emily. I've been trying to protect you." "Protect me?" Her voice shook with disbelief. "From what? From who? You've been lying to me, just like Lily. I thought you were my friend." The anger bubbled up inside of her, raw and untamed. She had trusted him. She had trusted both of them. And now, everything was falling apart in the most brutal way. "Listen, this is bigger than you think," Aaron said, his voice urgent but calm. "I didn't have a choice. I tried to keep you safe, but I didn't know how long I could protect you before they came for you." "Who? Who's they, Aaron?" Emily felt the walls of her mind beginning to crack under the weight of the unknown. She was tired of not knowing. Tired of playing along with this game where everyone had a hidden agenda. She wanted the truth. She needed it. Aaron's face flickered with something, guilt, fear, something she couldn't quite name. "It's not what you think. You're not just a target, Emily. You're the key to all of this. You've always been the key." The words hit her like a punch to the gut. The key. What did he mean by that? Her mind scrambled to make sense of it. "What do you mean, the key? What is all of this? Why are they after me?" She felt like she was suffocating, trapped in a cage of unanswered questions. Aaron's face softened for a moment, as if he was debating whether or not to tell her everything. But then his expression hardened again, and he stepped back, his eyes darting toward the door as if checking to make sure no one was listening. "Emily, there's no easy way to say this. You're in danger. And not just from the people who've been watching you. You're in danger because of what you've uncovered. They'll stop at nothing to keep you from exposing what they've done." Her chest tightened. The weight of his words was suffocating. What had she uncovered? What had she walked into without even realizing it? The thought of being caught up in something much bigger than herself, something far more dangerous, made her stomach twist in knots. "Then why didn't you tell me the truth earlier, Aaron?" she demanded. "Why keep me in the dark?" Aaron sighed deeply, his face lined with regret. "Because, Emily, there was no way to protect you once you started asking questions. Once you started digging. The moment you found that penthouse, you crossed a line that can't be uncrossed." Emily felt a chill run down her spine. She was already in too deep, and there was no turning back now. Everything had led her here, to this moment where every decision felt impossible. She wanted to run, to scream, to make it stop, but she couldn't. The truth was out there, and even if it meant walking into the unknown, she had to find it. But then Aaron delivered the final blow, the ultimatum that shattered any sense of safety she had left. You have two choices, Emily, Aaron said, his voice grim. You can keep fighting, keep looking for the truth, and risk everything, your life, your future, maybe even the lives of the people you care about. Or you can let it go. You can walk away and never look back. But if you do that, you'll never be a part of this again. They'll leave you alone. The words hung in the air, each one heavier than the last. Emily's heart was in her throat, her mind whirling with the weight of the decision in front of her. There was no right answer, no perfect choice. Each path led to danger, to a future she couldn't even begin to imagine. But was she willing to let go of the truth? Was she willing to turn her back on everything she had fought for, just to survive? The room was silent for a moment, the only sound the frantic beating of Emily's heart. She could feel the tension between them, the heavy weight of their choices pressing down on her chest. And then, just as she was about to speak, there was a knock at the door. A sharp, quick rap. Someone was coming. The choice was about to be made for her. The knock at the door broke through the tension like a thunderclap, sharp and unexpected, and for a moment, Emily stood frozen. Her mind raced, but no thought could grasp the enormity of the situation. Was this it? The moment everything would come crashing down? She could feel the urgency in the air, the weight of the decision she had just been forced into, but the knock felt like a signal, an alarm that something far worse was coming. Aaron was already moving, his face pale with a kind of fear Emily had never seen in him before. He reached for her, his grip tight, desperate. "Don't open it, Emily," he whispered, his voice trembling. "It's not safe." But the words barely registered as she instinctively stepped forward, her hand reaching for the door, compelled by some unexplainable pull, a feeling she couldn't ignore. She turned the handle, pushing the door open, and standing there on the threshold was someone she never expected, Detective Mason. He was the last person Emily thought she would see. The same detective who had been investigating the missing person cases, who had briefly spoken with her in the past about her involvement in the search for the truth. But now, seeing him here in this moment was like a punch to her stomach. His eyes were dark and guarded, his expression unreadable, and the weight of his presence filled the doorway like a threat in and of itself. "Emily," Mason said, his voice cold and businesslike. "We need to talk. It's about everything." Before she could respond, Aaron stepped forward, positioning himself between her and the detective, his body tense, protective. "I told you to stay away from her, Mason," Aaron said, his voice low but full of warning. Mason didn't flinch. His eyes flicked over to Aaron, and then back to Emily. "You've been too caught up in this, haven't you, Emily? You've been digging into something you don't understand. But it's bigger than you, and it's bigger than Aaron, too." Emily's heart pounded as Mason's words hung in the air. Something was off, there was an edge to his tone, a hidden truth in the way he spoke that felt dangerous. The anxiety that had been clawing at her for days now surged, rising up like a tidal wave, threatening to drown her. "Don't listen to him," Aaron said, his voice low and urgent. "He's not who you think he is." Emily's mind raced. What was he talking about? Mason had always seemed like the reliable one, the one who might help them understand the truth. But now, in the face of this confrontation, she wasn't so sure. Was he playing a game, too? Was he part of it all along? The pieces were falling together in a way she couldn't process, like a puzzle that was missing too many pieces, leaving only questions in its wake. Mason's eyes narrowed, and there was something cold in his gaze now, something that sent a chill crawling up her spine. "You still don't get it, do you, Emily? You think this is just about you, about some twisted game of who's telling the truth. But it's much more complicated than that." He paused, letting his words sink in, before he added, "You're not the only one being manipulated here. We all are." Her head spun. "We all are." Who was he talking about? What did he mean? Mason's lips curled into a tight, knowing smile. "You've uncovered more than you realize, Emily. More than you were ever meant to. This goes way beyond your search for answers. The people you've been trusting, the ones you think have been helping you, they've been working for something far bigger than any of us can control." Her breath hitched, her pulse quickening. "What are you talking about? Who's behind this?" Aaron's eyes widened, panic flickering for the briefest moment. He was trying to hide something, but the tension in the air was suffocating, and Emily could see it now, see the cracks in the facade. He wasn't just trying to protect her anymore. He was trying to protect himself, too. It's not just about you, Emily, Mason said, his voice colder now. It's about control. Power. The truth is, you've been chasing a lie this whole time. A carefully constructed lie that's designed to keep you in the dark, to make sure you never find out what's really going on. Emily felt like the floor had been pulled out from under her. A lie. What had she been looking for all along? If everything was a lie, what was the truth? And who could she trust? Just as her mind began to race with these impossible questions, Mason's voice cut through the noise, sending a shiver down her spine. The people you think you can trust, Aaron, Lily, even me, we're all part of it. We've all been chosen for this. The real players, the ones pulling the strings, they're watching us right now. Emily turned to Aaron, disbelief flooding her senses. Aaron, is he telling the truth? He didn't answer immediately. His gaze flickered nervously between her and Mason, and the hesitation was all Emily needed to see. The man she had trusted, the one who had claimed to be her protector, was just as tangled up in this mess as the rest of them. Yes, Aaron finally admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. But it's not like you think, Emily. I'm trying to protect you, trying to keep you out of this, but there's no way out once you're in. Mason stepped closer, his face hardening. She's already in, Aaron. The moment she started asking questions, the moment she found that key, she was already a part of this. We've all been marked. Emily felt a rush of terror flooding her veins. Marked. Her voice trembled. By who? Mason met her gaze with cold eyes, and for the first time, Emily saw the true depth of what she was up against. By the people who control everything. You've been dancing to their tune this whole time, and now there's no turning back. You've reached the point of no return. Before she could react, a sound shattered the tense silence, the unmistakable ding of an elevator, followed by footsteps. Someone else was coming. And as she turned to look, her heart sank. Standing in the doorway now was Lily, her expression unreadable, her eyes cold. Emily, Lily said, her voice low, almost as if she were speaking to someone she had never known. You don't understand. You never did. This isn't about you. It never was. The betrayal in Lily's eyes hit harder than anything Emily had ever felt. All of them, Aaron, Mason, Lily, had been lying to her, leading her toward a truth that was nothing more than an illusion. And now, as the walls closed in and the stakes grew higher than she could have imagined, Emily realized the crushing weight of the decision she had to make. Who could she trust? Who was really trying to help her, and who was part of the game? The danger, the conspiracy, had expanded beyond her wildest thoughts. There was no safe place. There was no escape. And just when she thought she was ready to fight, the worst realization of all hit her. They were already too deep. Too far gone. The game had already been decided. And all she could do now was play her part. The choices were gone. The truth was all that was left. But at what cost? The tension in the penthouse was suffocating. Emily stood at the center of the room, her mind spinning, her heart racing with a fear she couldn't shake. Mason, Aaron, and Lily, all of them had played her, each one of them part of a larger scheme she couldn't fully comprehend. But one thing was clear now. They weren't just puppets in this game. They were all involved. And the puppet master, the one pulling the strings, was someone she had never suspected. The truth had been staring her in the face, but she hadn't been able to see it until now. You lied to me, Aaron, Emily said, her voice steady, though every part of her wanted to scream. All of you did. I trusted you. Aaron's face twisted with guilt, his eyes flashing with panic, but there was nothing he could say to take it back. He had betrayed her. They all had. And now, in the face of this sickening truth, Emily understood the gravity of the situation. She wasn't just involved in some twisted conspiracy. She was central to it, the one they had been watching from the start, the one they'd been using to play out their twisted game. I didn't want this, Aaron whispered, desperation in his voice. I tried to keep you safe. I didn't want you to be a part of it, but you were always going to be. You were always going to be the one who could destroy everything. You were the only one who could stop it. Stop it. Emily's voice cracked. The pieces were falling into place, but she still couldn't understand. What are you talking about, Aaron? What is all this? Who are you really? Before Aaron could respond, Lily stepped forward, her eyes cold and calculating. It's time you knew, Emily. You've been chasing shadows, digging into things that were never meant for you to uncover. The truth is, you were never meant to be in control of your own life. None of us were. Emily felt a chill creep down her spine as she realized what Lily was implying. You've been working for someone all along, she said, her voice low with disbelief. Who's behind this? Who's pulling the strings? Lily smiled, but it wasn't the smile of a friend. It was the smile of someone who had already won. You want to know who's behind it? You already know him. You've always known him, Emily. And then it hit her. The name she had never suspected. The one person she had trusted more than anyone. Her boss. The one who had hired her for the investigation in the first place, the one who had seemingly been so eager to help her uncover the truth. It was him. The pieces clicked together with a sickening finality. Jack, Emily breathed, her voice barely a whisper. It was Jack all along, wasn't it? Lily's eyes glinted with something that felt almost like amusement. You're not as slow as I thought, Emily. Yes, Jack. He's been orchestrating everything from the start. All the lies. The deception. The manipulation. All of it was part of his plan to keep you in the dark, keep you searching for something that didn't exist, all so you'd walk right into the trap. But why? Emily's voice was a raw rasp. Why me? Why do you want me involved in this? Because, Emily, Mason spoke up now, his voice low, almost regretful. You're the one who could bring it all down. You're the only one who can expose the truth. Aaron, who had been silent for too long, finally spoke up. It's not just about exposure, Emily. It's about control. Jack's been working to consolidate power, and you were the missing piece. He knew if you uncovered everything, the whole system would come crumbling down. But he underestimated you. He didn't realize you'd get this far. The walls of the penthouse seemed to close in on Emily. Every word felt like a slap, each one more painful than the last. She had been a pawn in a game she didn't even know she was playing. The people she trusted, the ones she had been so sure were on her side, had been part of it all along. But how had Jack gotten to them? Before she could fully process the realization, her phone buzzed. Her heart skipped a beat, and instinctively, she pulled it from her pocket. The message was brief, but it sent a shockwave through her body. He's coming for you, Emily. You need to leave now. The sudden urgency hit her like a freight train, and in that moment, Emily knew this wasn't just about secrets and lies anymore. It was about survival. But who could she trust? Her hands shook as she glanced at Aaron, at Lily, at Mason. Each one of them seemed like they could be the next one to betray her, to sell her out to Jack and whatever twisted plot he had cooked up. You have to get out of here, Emily, Aaron said, his voice low but insistent. You're not safe. Not anymore. But Emily was already moving, her thoughts sharp and focused now. She didn't have time to waste. She didn't have time to make a decision about who to trust. The only thing that mattered was getting out alive and exposing Jack for the monster he truly was. The world didn't need to know the details of his twisted plan, they just needed to know that he was dangerous. As she moved toward the elevator, everything seemed to blur around her. Every step felt like a race against time, her mind flashing between the past and the present, the lies and the truth. She wasn't just running for her life anymore, she was running for everyone who had been hurt, everyone who had been a part of this cruel game. The stakes were higher than they had ever been before. But the final twist came just as the elevator doors closed behind her. The elevator jolted, the lights flickering as the steel doors slammed shut. Emily looked up, panic setting in. There was no time left. The emergency stop light flashed, and before she could react, she felt the sudden, horrifying clink of the elevator cable snapping. The world seemed to tip sideways, and as the elevator plummeted, everything went black. In the final, agonizing seconds, Emily realized the truth. Jack had never wanted to silence her. He had wanted her to expose him. And the only way to do that was to make her a martyr. The last thing she saw before everything went dark was a familiar face, Jack's, staring down at her from the control panel above. The one thing she never expected. The one thing that changed everything. And then, the world went quiet. When Emily finally regained consciousness, she wasn't sure how much time had passed. The world felt slow, as though the very air around her had thickened, pressing down with the weight of everything that had just happened. Her body ached, and the sharp, metallic taste in her mouth was the only reminder of the chaos she had just narrowly survived. But as her eyes fluttered open, the first thing she saw was a hospital room, stark white, sterile, and uninviting. She was alive, but the truth was that her life, the life she once knew, was gone. The people she trusted, the friends, the allies, had all been pieces in a game she hadn't fully understood until it was too late. The man she thought she could expose, Jack, the puppet master behind it all, had orchestrated her downfall with the precision of a skilled manipulator. But there, in the silence of the hospital room, Emily realized that the story wasn't finished yet. The authorities had found her. The elevator crash, the one that should have been her end, had somehow spared her. The police had recovered footage, traced the events back to Jack, and with his capture came an unraveling of the conspiracy that had spun its web around her. The messages, the threats, the lies, and betrayals, all of it had led to this moment. Jack's empire of manipulation had been exposed, the people who had worked for him arrested, and the lives he'd ruined began to slowly heal. The investigation was far from over, and there were still questions, lingering pieces to be put together, but Emily felt a weight lift off her chest as she realized that the world was starting to understand the scale of the danger. The truth had been exposed, and Jack was behind bars. He had been trying to control her, to use her as a tool in a larger scheme that threatened the lives of countless others. But now, it was over. Or so it seemed. Still, there was something unsettling in the air as Emily sat up on the hospital bed, looking out the window. She couldn't quite shake the feeling that there was more to this than anyone was letting on. The evidence against Jack was overwhelming, but as the days passed, she began to notice subtle inconsistencies. Small details that hadn't been fully explained. A phone call she overheard between two officers discussing a new lead, a strange conversation with a reporter who seemed too interested in her story. It was clear that the surface had been scratched, but there was still a deeper truth lurking beneath, one that no one had yet uncovered. The sense of finality that had enveloped her in the aftermath of Jack's arrest felt hollow, as if the curtain had only fallen on one act of a much larger play. Aaron had visited her in the hospital, his eyes filled with a mix of guilt and sorrow. He had apologized, again and again, for what he had done. But Emily had stopped listening. She didn't need his apologies anymore. The person she had been before, the person who had believed in the goodness of others, who had trusted without hesitation, was gone. She couldn't afford to be that person anymore. Not in a world where people like Jack could manipulate her so easily. But part of her still wondered if Aaron had been a pawn as well, or if he had truly been trying to protect her in his own twisted way. There were too many unanswered questions. The hardest part, though, was Lily. Emily hadn't seen her since the confrontation at the Penthouse. It was as though Lily had disappeared into thin air, vanishing without a trace the moment the dust began to settle. The detectives couldn't find any evidence of her involvement in the conspiracy, and her disappearance only deepened the mystery. Had she truly been a victim, or had she played a larger role in the game? Emily couldn't shake the feeling that Lily's disappearance wasn't just a coincidence. In the quiet moments, she could almost hear her voice again, whispering that Emily would never truly escape this. That the story was far from over. As Emily stood up from the bed, the nurse entered, her face soft with concern. "You're free to go whenever you're ready," she said, her tone gentle, but Emily could see the uncertainty in her eyes. The world had changed, and so had Emily. No longer could she return to the life she had known, to the peaceful routine she once took for granted. There would be no normality for her anymore. She was now part of something much larger, something far more dangerous. And no matter how much she wanted to walk away, to close the chapter and never look back, she knew deep down that she couldn't. The conspiracy was far from finished, and she had seen enough to know that the truth, whatever it was, had only just begun to reveal itself. The door clicked behind her as she stepped out of the room, the sterile hospital hallways stretching before her like a maze. Her mind was still racing, but there was a clarity now. The fear that had once gripped her heart was gone, replaced by a determination she hadn't known she possessed. She couldn't go back. She couldn't unsee what she had seen. The only way forward was to uncover the full truth, to expose every layer of the conspiracy, and to make sure that no one would ever suffer the way she had. But as she walked down the hall, her footsteps echoing in the emptiness, she couldn't shake the feeling that there were eyes watching her, someone, or something, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike again. Just as she reached the elevator, a message popped up on her phone. It was from an unknown number, the text short but chilling. "It's not over, Emily. You haven't found everything yet. The game is still on. Don't think you've won." Her hand tightened around the phone as the elevator doors slid open. She stepped inside, the weight of the message sinking in. She wasn't done. She could never be done. Because the truth had only cracked the surface of something much darker, and until she uncovered every hidden piece, she would never find peace. As the doors closed and the elevator descended, Emily looked up at her reflection in the steel doors. The woman staring back at her was someone she barely recognized, but that wasn't necessarily a bad thing. Because in this new world, in the web of lies and shadows that she had found herself in, she had become the hunter. And the game? It was far from over. The journey was just beginning.